Okay, I'm gonna go and sit
Did
back
anybody
down.
not get an outline? We have an outline?
I think I'm gonna come to the
Really? What? Can I talk? Yeah. Did you sign it? Really? Really? Wow. But is he for children? Really?
Whiteboards, I gotta use it. Don't laugh at my,
Where's he at?
work penmanship. Maybe, I don't know.
Before you start, can I ask everybody here, you guys are interested in the overlap between the fantasy court and family court? Is everybody here single parent? Is there anybody who's not a single parent? So there's some. Wow. Most of the single parents. And the other question I have is, for those who, was it the other parent who dropped the dime?
Yeah.
Who got DCFS involved? That's everybody?
All right, cool, that's it, let's get rolling. All right, every civil rights case that you do, not just in this area of law, but in any area of law where you're attacking either the police or services, customs, and as any government agent, in its most basic form, your civil rights lawsuit, and I'm talking about just under federal law, this is not under state law, this is federal law, specifically Code Section 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. There are two, and only two, elements that you are required to plead to make your claim. Number one, and it doesn't actually matter the order you go in here, in most instances we look at the offending officer first. Were they acting under color of law? That's the first element. The second element is, did they violate a constitutional right? Now that seems really simple, right? We just have two elements. Were they acting under color of law, and did they violate your rights? Acting under color of law is usually, in most cases, a very simple thing to show. In the instance that most of you are dealing with, where it's social services, you'll have a social worker who's employed by the county who goes out pursuant to state law, usually Welfare and Institutions Code Section 300 or a subsection thereof, and will grab your child and detain your child, put them off in foster care or wherever they go from there. That element of the claim is really pretty simple to establish. When the social worker does that act, they are acting under color of law. That's very rarely disputed. The only time that you're ever going to face a challenge, I shouldn't say ever, that seems absolute. You never want to speak in absolute. The most frequent thing that you will face will be the government agent actually going out and doing the bad deed. Sometimes we go after therapists, sometimes they'll go after doctors. We have those too. They're typically not. You got to remember, we need government agent under color of law, a therapist not employed by the county, a doctor not employed by the county. You're going to have to show that they were colluding with the government worker in order to meet the acting under color of law requirement. It gets a little bit dicey, and it's probably not covered in this outline, but we do have briefing and other work products available on the Families Against Government Abuse group that we posted, so you can get that more detailed information there. And then if you send me an email or do a posting there, if you have one of those specific circumstances, I will respond to it. The second thing that you're going to have to deal with, and this is where things get dicey, is whether or not a constitutional right was violated. Obviously, parents and children have a well-established constitutional right under both the 4th and 14th Amendments to live together free of government interference, except in emergencies and other circumstances that the government deems appropriate. That's where things get a little bit dicey, and that's where most of our discussion today is going to focus. So, if you guys would turn to, I think we've actually covered all the way through one more thing. Covered almost all the way through page 3 of the outline. The last thing that we haven't covered before we move on to the specific mechanism that your rights will be violated, that you'll allege in a lawsuit, is government liability. We talked about how the individual social workers pick up liability just by going out and doing the things they do, lying about doing your report or their report, grabbing your child without getting a warrant when there's no emergency, making up reasons to grab your child. What do you do, though, when all of that was done because of a county or city policy, government policy? Governments are also liable under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, where they have a policy, custom, practice, or usage that causes the violation of your constitutional rights. Now, what does that mean? What that means is if they have a written policy that does not measure up to constitutional standards, then their social workers actually may not even be liable because of qualified immunity, but the county will still be liable because they have this unconstitutional, facially unconstitutional policy that their social workers are acting out on when they go out and violate their rights. That's one way to get no. There's many other ways. Another way that you get there is if there is no written policy and there is no training to proscribe social workers from doing something that everybody in the agency knows they do. For example, in just about every agency, I have specific evidence on Orange County, but in just about every social services agency that we've ever run, they do something that's called beefing up their reports. Beefing up their reports, what does that mean? That means they exaggerate the allegations against what they think is the offending parent. It's called beefing up your reports. There's no policy that prevents it. There's no training to teach the social workers that they shouldn't be doing it. And in fact, it's condoned because upper management turns a blind eye to it. That also is a constitutional violation. They cannot, in the face of a known need for policy and training, they cannot ignore it. So if they know this beefing up is going on, and they don't deal with it either through policy or training or both, the county's liable under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. That pretty much covers practice, custom, and usage. There's a few other ways that you can get to Monell liability, but probably for our purposes here today, that's pretty much the most important ones. Well, I'm talking kind of fast, huh? Got a lot of material to cover, and making me sweat, too. Yeah, well, I'm trying to light. I'm going to hit the light. There's fluorescence they shouldn't be putting off my feet. It's probably just my nerves. That's too dark.
It's good. It was good before.
How about opening the doors?
Yeah, we can do that. There, that back one was probably in there.
Open that?
No, we're good.
No?
We're good. I'll have you stripping down here as he goes on. All right, I think that we've covered now. Okay. Now, how many of you have, before I move on to the next section, how many of you have actually either filed or are working on a complaint? All right, like six people or so. And I'm not talking about just a government tort claim. I'm talking about the actual lawsuit. Okay. Well, thinking counts. That's why we're here.
Thinking.
Okay. All right. One thing that I heard in a well, that gets a little dicey. We'll get into the specifics later when we have a break. What I want to cover, and just so everybody knows, I don't mean to sound like a jerk or be a jerk if I was putting down the questions during the presentation, but the last time we did this, we really didn't get through the materials at all because we took too many questions that sidelined the whole thing. It does not work. There's a lot of ground that we need to cover. There'll be plenty of time this time for some questions later. What I suggest you do is write them down, and then to the extent that we have general questions that can help everybody with their situation, we'll go ahead and address those. If you have specific personal questions, personally your situation, either shoot me an email or call or something, we can address them privately. But the whole purpose of being here today is to help as many people as possible, generally, so that we can all move forward together and get our fights going. So, that got me off track too. Okay. Yeah, lawsuits. I was having a conversation here this morning, and one thing that I kept hearing, I'm not calling anybody out,